What's up, guys? My name is Chris, and I'm back to present my prototype presentation for my kitchen assistant, Suda AI. And just give you a little recap, this is a voice and gesture-based kitchen assistant that aims to enable hands-free interaction with the recipe that you are making. So what I have so far for my recipe on the back end of things, I just have it as some JavaScript variables for the time being. I plan on making, turning this into maybe a class representation down the road, as well as implementing some type of maybe a Python GUI or an interface that users can input recipe in a more intuitive way versus typing it into like a code block. On the right side here, we have the simple interface. We can see we have a lemonade recipe up here. We have our ingredients on the left side, instructions on the right side, and then here at the bottom, I'd like to bring your attention to this part, which is kind of like a little instruction or a little hint section that provides the user with insights into how to query the system. In an effort to make this, doable and feasible in the short time that we have, I just use some simple keyword logic to determine, what the user is trying to ask, and then, returning responses based on certain keywords. Instead of, this could have been something more complex with NLP or some kind of neural net to process the input, but for the scope of this project, I think just simple querying logic with some redundancy, to make sure that they're processed efficiently, I think is good enough. So for our user tests, I broke it down into three main sections. First, we have our recipe creation, which in this case I just typed in the recipe myself, and this is something that I'm going to work on in the future so that users can actually input their own recipes as well as pull up previous recipes that have already been put in the system. So for this part, I just had the user kind of drag around the tiles and put them where they so please on the screen. Then I had them interact with the ingredients. So I first asked them to query for the entire ingredient list, then ask for a specific amount of a certain ingredient, and then finally convert one of the ingredients to something new. And this is exactly what I gave them, so I didn't tell them exactly what to say. They figured that out on their own from the query format that I provided on the interface. And then for the instructions, I just had them ask for all the instructions and then ask for a specific number of instructions. And this kind of simulates, the user flow. If they would be using it, you'd be asking, how much of a certain ingredient do I need? Read me a certain instruction off the list. So I thought this was a good way, without having them make an entire, recipe with this. This is a good way to get a good idea for how a user would use the system. So yeah, we can go ahead and watch that now.
All right, here we are at our user test for my Suda AI system, which is essentially a kitchen assistant. So here we have my tester completing a list of tasks that I will put on screen, or that I'll put on the PowerPoint. So the first task is going to be just customizing the different widgets and putting them where she wants them.
That was already done at the beginning of the video. She was kind of playing around with it.
What do I need?
Water, sugar, lemon juice, ice.
How much water?
1 cup.
Convert lemon juice to teaspoons.
3 tablespoons is equal to 9 teaspoons.
Read all instructions.
Step 1. Stir together the sugar and water until the sugar is dissolved. Step 2. Stir in the lemon juice. Step 3. Fill a glass with ice, pour in lemonade, and enjoy.
Read instruction 3.
Step 3. Fill a glass with ice, pour in lemonade, and enjoy.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so that was it for the user test. So some
All right,
feedback that I got was mostly good. She really enjoyed the intuitive and easy to use voice commands. She felt that they covered a good expanse of what you would use in an actual kitchen setting. She also liked the interface. It was very simple, easy to use, like I said. Some things that she mentioned that is good to improve would be to standardize the question formatting. So most of them were pretty standardized, except for a couple that were kind of, I guess, unintuitive on how to ask for certain things. So that's one thing that I'm going to focus on in the next iteration, is making sure that all of the ways you ask different questions are standardized, based on what type of action you're trying to do, as well as just she would like to see more functionality added, both through speech, but especially gesture. And this is somewhere I wanted to ask you guys what would be the best way, or some ideas, I guess, for how gesture would be, or can be used in this certain way. I didn't want to just add something random in this iteration because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I feel like speech is the most intuitive method for cooking because you're going to be using your hands mostly to cook, and your voice is very free. So yeah, open to many ideas there. Some next steps, like I said, plan on implementing some form of gesture control. One idea that I had was possibly using the Leap to swipe through different instructions, so that when you complete an instruction, you can highlight it and then kind of clear it, or maybe move it to the back of the list. If you have a large list of instructions, maybe you have a 10 or 15 length list of things you need to do. Maybe you can use your hands to move those around in an intuitive way. Then I'm going to make the speech functionality a little bit more robust, as well as add some more functionality with your speech. And then finally, I want to create kind of like almost like a welcome page that will give you options to load previous recipes, as well as maybe a Python GUI or some intuitive way to input text so that you can create a recipe from scratch without having to write it in code form. And then in the future, I just plan on using some more user testing to figure out and evaluate my system. And one way is to have the user actually make something tangible from start to finish with the system, so that I can get a good idea for kind of the full stack user process and what that entails. Yep, so that's about it. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks, guys.